Welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new, my name is Becky, and this week, probably take me a week to a week and a half, we are gonna be spending the entire week making fall cozy casseroles, and I cannot wait. I love a good casserole. These are all gonna be homemade, and none of them are gonna have any canned soup, which we're gonna get that creamy coziness and flavor that you usually get from a traditional casserole, but we are gonna make them all from scratch. I for sure have 4 I wanna make. The first one we're gonna make, and we're making this one first because I listed all of them out for Josh. He wanted this one for dinner tonight. We are gonna make a cheesy broccoli and rice casserole. To me, broccoli and rice and chicken and cheese screams the fall. If you're new, I have a huge garden and I don't really grow broccoli because I can't grow it very well. So we don't usually eat broccoli during the summer. So come fall, Josh and I are ready for some broccoli. So that's, I think, why he picked this one. The next 3 recipes, I'm not sure what order I'm gonna make them in. I will, as I go through this week and week and a half or so, ask Josh which one sounds good, or I'll make whichever one sounds good to me, and we will have that for dinner. We're gonna have a shredded beef pie, kind of like a take on a chicken pot pie, but with shredded braised beef instead. I cannot wait for this. I've never had anything like that. I think that sounds perfect for fall. We're also gonna be making a chili cornbread bake. I think I wanna make that on the day that I process all of the corn that I bought from a local farmer. And then last but certainly not least, I've gotta look at my list. We are gonna be making a baked ravioli lasagna. None of these recipes are recipes I've made before. I cannot wait to make them. They all sound super comforting and cozy. I will link the recipe down in the description box along with the timestamp. I turned this off while we were talking. So if you wanna try making any of them, they will be linked down in the description box. So we're gonna get going on cooking our chicken first. For the cheesy broccoli chicken and rice casserole, I have 2 chicken breasts here that I cut in half, and we're gonna get these seasoned up. I have some homemade garlic salt here and some pepper. I'm gonna season one side first, and I'm gonna season them pretty liberally. We're gonna pop them into our preheated cast iron pan. I did myself a favor and I picked up some frozen, already pre-chopped broccoli. So we don't even have to chop our broccoli. I'm gonna use 1.5 of these bags and we don't have to cook it. I am gonna go ahead and just pop this in the microwave for just a couple minutes to get kind of the frost off of them. I gotta look and see how long it says to, it doesn't say, it doesn't have directions. That's okay. I'll probably put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes or so, maybe 4, just to get the chill off. The only veggie prep we have to do for this recipe is to chop up 1 onion. And if you had frozen onion, you could use that. You can buy pre-diced frozen onion at your grocery store, and that is always a really nice time saver, but I have some fresh ones that need to be used up, so we're gonna use these. When I was postpartum with my son, my mom had put together a meal train for me, and one of her friends brought me this recipe, not this exact recipe, but basically a cheesy broccoli and rice and chicken casserole. And it just felt so comforting. I was postpartum in December, and it was winter, and it was cold, and it was cheesy, and it was broccoli-y, and it was creamy, and it was delicious. So this recipe in particular always just kind of now has a really warm place in my heart, and I'm really excited to have this for dinner. I was really glad when Josh chose this as our dinner tonight. This is gonna go into my food recycler. This is my mill, it's my food recycler. I've had this for quite a few months now and I absolutely love it. I think once it's full, I dump the contents into my garden beds to feed back my soil. And at this point, I think I've filled it up 4 or 5 times, and it's amazing how much material I'm able to add back into my soil. I can link this down below for you if you're interested. I have really, really been enjoying that. I don't give all my food scraps to the food mill because some food scraps go to my chickens, but my chickens don't eat all the food scraps. Like onion peels, they're not gonna eat. So I like to have that so I can just recycle it right in my kitchen, and I can just put those nutrients back into my garden beds, which is amazing. So now I'm thinking some of this chicken is probably done at this point. Yep, these littler pieces are definitely done. And this big one is not quite done. So I'm gonna get these smaller ones out of this pan. I'm gonna let that big piece continue to cook for a few more minutes. While that last piece of chicken's cooking, I'm gonna shred up the cheese we need. If you have pre-shredded cheese, go ahead and use that. And if you have rotisserie chicken or canned chicken, you could use that as well in this recipe, and that would save you a step. I have just fresh chicken breast, so that's what I'm using today. Woo! I think this is done at this point. Yep. Perfect. So now we've got some beautiful color on our chicken and on our pan. We want to capture all of this beautiful brown bits in our sauce, because even though we're not adding a can of cream of chicken, which is pretty traditional in this recipe, we're actually gonna make our own, and it is going to be incredibly delicious. And we're gonna start by making a roux. So we're gonna start with our butter. That is about 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna cut it into some smaller pieces just so it melts a tad bit quicker, because this is getting a little bit brown. There we go. I'm gonna start scraping up some of those brown bits if I can, even with just the butter. We're gonna add our flour. That's gonna thicken our sauce and turn it into a cream of chicken. We're gonna cook our flour for a few minutes. I had turned my stove off, so I'm gonna turn it back on to get that flour cooked. Add just a little bit more flour. To our pot, I'm gonna add some onion powder, garlic powder. I'm measuring with my heart. Black pepper, salt, and some poultry seasoning. The recipe calls for about 5 or 6 different herbs, but I'm just gonna substitute some poultry seasoning and have a one and done. Now we need to actually turn this butter flour mixture into a sauce. So we're gonna add milk and chicken broth. And if you've never made homemade cream of soup before, basically that's all the ingredients it is. It's flour, butter, milk, and chicken broth. So since I already have this pan dirty from cooking the chicken, it doesn't take really that much more effort to make a homemade cream of chicken. Now this recipe calls for 1 1/4 cup of broth. I have 1 homemade jar here, which is 2 cups. The reason I added a little bit more flour is I figured I want to just use all that broth, because I don't know what else I would do with 3/4 of a cup of broth with later this week. So we're gonna add that, and if I need to add a little bit more flour to that, I can. But I would rather have my casserole be a little bit more saucy, a little bit more creamy, and use up this whole jar than just put part of it back in the fridge and have to try to find something to do with it. So we do want this to get really nice and thick and creamy, just like a store-bought cream of soup. We will taste it for seasoning too once it gets all mixed together. I'm gonna grab my whisk. I can already tell that's starting to thicken up just, oh, you know what I forgot to do? Shoot. I forgot to saute my onions. I don't want to put raw onions into my casserole. What I should have done before I made this roux is I should have added my butter and sauteed my onions for about 10 minutes or 8 minutes or so, just until translucent, and then made our sauce. But that's okay. We can still make our sauce and saute our onions, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix my mistake. It's not going to be a big deal. Now, arguably one of the most important steps is tasting it before you put it all together, because right now is a good time to adjust seasonings if you need to. That is so good. I don't think it needs anything. The salt, the pepper, the chickeny flavor is there. We're just gonna let this thicken up. The little bit of poultry seasoning is really starting to sing to me. It's screaming fall, which I am in the mood for. Our mornings are starting to feel like fall. I know we're not technically in fall yet, but it is super foggy and kind of chilly in the morning. And that is what is putting me in the fall casserole mood. Now, a recipe like this, if you are a busy person, would be to double this recipe and bake up half for the dinner your family's gonna have that night, and half put in a freezer container, like a 9x13 baking dish, and freeze that if you have the freezer space, because then you could slowly start to build your freezer with some homemade meals on nights that you're too busy to cook or you just don't wanna cook. You could pull that meal out and go ahead and cook that up. Or you could also, if you are a smaller family and one of these recipes would be too big for your family, instead of cutting the recipe in half, still make the whole recipe and then just freeze up in like a 9x9 baking dish. Bake up for yourself a 9x9, freeze a 9x9, and then you can also start to slowly fill your freezer. Now this is looking really nice. I don't know if you can see, but it's starting to thicken up perfectly. So this is our homemade cream of chicken soup. I turned the heat off and we're gonna add our cheese, because this is gonna be a cheesy casserole, which is my favorite. We're gonna get this mixed in. We're gonna add our cheese sauce to our broccoli. I've not forgotten about those onions. While those onions are cooking away, we're going to finish up the rest of the casserole. I'm gonna go ahead and dice up this chicken. You could shred this too if you prefer shredded chicken. I prefer diced. So that's what I'm gonna do. And the reason I cut the chicken breast in half is so that I could season more of the chicken breast and I could have it cook a little bit faster. I'm not gonna waste these either. I'm gonna go ahead and put that into our bowl. We're gonna get our chicken in here. I have 3 cups of cooked rice added to our pot. I cook that in the Instant Pot because I don't like cooking rice on the stove like the recipe said. I'm gonna get 2 of these snack size crackers crushed up for our crunchy topping. And I shredded a little bit more cheese for the top. My onions may have gotten a little darker than I intended because I was shredding cheese for a recipe we're making later in the week. I figured since I already had my grater out and my cutting board messy, and I knew what recipes I was making this week, I might as well go ahead and get that grated up. So I wasn't really looking to brown these onions. I was more looking just to cook them until they're translucent, but they still smell incredible and I think they're gonna be delicious regardless of if they get a little bit browned. That's not a big deal at all. And my pot got a little dark, so to make cleaning easier, I just added a little water. I'm gonna put that back on the heat, let that simmer for a minute while I finish this recipe. I have my oven preheated to, well, it's at 200 right now, but it needs to get up to 375. Oh my goodness, this smells incredible. I don't know if there's any better smell than butter and onions cooking on the stove, and then add in broccoli and cheese. Delicious. My mom growing up, she stopped doing it at some point, but for a long time, anytime she made steamed broccoli, she would smother it in cheddar cheese, and just cheese and broccoli together is probably one of my favorite combinations. I just love it. And this looks perfect. It's still nice and saucy, so it's gonna get just even bubblier and delicious in the oven. I'm glad I went with the really small bits of broccoli because that just mixes in really well. So I'm gonna grab a spatula so we can get all of this goodness into our baking dish. If I had not browned the bottom of this dish like I did, I would just put this filling mixture back into that dish because that is an oven safe dish. And then I would have one less dish to clean, but we're gonna go ahead and just put it in a traditional baking dish. And this is a lot. This would feed a crowd, this recipe for sure. This would even make a really good side dish if you left the chicken out and you wanted to do some other protein and you just had the broccoli and rice and cheese together and onion. That would be really good. Now to get those breadcrumbs super crunchy, we're gonna put some pats of butter on the top. I'm gonna cut this butter super thin so I can get lots of little pats on here. Now the nice thing about this dish is it's not gonna take long to bake. All we have to do is pop this in the oven and everything's fully cooked. Chicken's fully cooked, broccoli's cooked. So we just want this to get ooey gooey, bubbly, and crispy on the top. So while this is cooking, I can get some dishes done. So in the time it took for this to finish up, I was able to get the kitchen cleaned back up. And look at this, oh my goodness. So Josh is gonna come in and we're gonna do a taste test together. He has golf tonight, so we do eat early on golf night. So we're just gonna dish a little bit up so it can cool just a bit because it's boiling hot. I wanna make sure to get some of that crust, crunchy topping in each bite. What we will do at the end is taste test all of, or taste test. We're gonna taste each one as we go. We're not gonna taste test them all at the end because I'm not making them all in one day. But we will, at the end, come back and list our favorites to least favorite, which ones he definitely, or I definitely wanna make again, and which ones maybe are kind of like a one and done. When I do these themed week of the meal dinners and I try a bunch of new recipes, sometimes we find some of our new favorites, and then sometimes we're like, that was good, but maybe I don't need to make that again. So Josh is here, he's been out working in the yard all morning, so he's gonna taste it over there. But then...
And I've been smelling this as I come into the garage and stuff, I smell it, so it smells good.
Good. So you wanna know what it is?
Can I take a guess?
Sure.
All right, so I'm seeing chicken, broccoli, cheese. I'm seeing some cracker crumbs.
Yeah.
And some onions.
And rice.
So I'm guessing it's like a cheesy broccoli rice bake
Casserole.
with some chicken.
Yeah.
Casserole, that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
that's exactly what it is. So
it
cheers.
smells really good. Cheers. Mm.
Mm. Mm. Super savory.
That's really good. Very, it's got a great texture to it. Great mouthfeel. A great balance too.
The
crumbs?
I want to say breadcrumbs. That's what I'm trying to say, but they're cracker crumbs.
Yeah.
Are really good.
They're really good. Mm. Yeah, you've got the soft broccoli with the chewy chicken, and the chewy isn't the right word for chicken.
Tender.
Tender, moist, succulent chicken, but then the crunch is nice.
I probably added more cheese than the recipe said.
That's
and
fine.
That's really good too.
That's never a problem.
Would you like me to make this again? Mm-hmm. I think this is the first time I've ever made a cheesy broccoli rice casserole, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
we've had like cheesy broccoli based stuff before, but not a casserole. Didn't you do one with like
Maybe I have.
crock pot meals?
Maybe. Oh, I think it was a stovetop. Maybe it was a
That could be.
stovetop dinner. I don't know. It's good.
I'm a fan.
regardless.
It's a good combo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're gonna sit down and have an early dinner. Josh is gonna get cleaned up, go to golf, and then I will see you back next time we are in the kitchen making a cozy fall casserole. Welcome back to recipe number 2. I just spent about 15-20 minutes out in the garden trying to harvest about 45 pounds of tomatoes and a bunch of other garden fresh produce, and I realized it is just too hot out there right now. So I figured I would come inside into the air conditioning and let's prep dinner right now, and then either later tonight or early tomorrow morning, I will go out into the garden and harvest those tomatoes. So we're gonna use some of the tomatoes we harvested from last year's garden in tonight's dinner. Oh, Josh came to snack cookies. I made ginger snap cookies yesterday. Tonight for dinner, we are going to be making, what is it called? I don't know why. Baked ravioli lasagna. I have seen these go around online, these recipes, for years. I've never made them. It sounds delicious, and I want to use up some of last year's marinara sauce because in probably a matter of a month or so, we are going to be making more marinara sauce with the tomatoes from this year's garden. So the first thing we need to do though for this baked ravioli lasagna is we need to cook up 1 pound of Italian sausage. I think this is probably going to be the easiest recipe we're making out of all these recipes. The only real prep we have to do is cook that Italian sausage and dice up 1 onion. Pretty easy here. We do need to make a quick ricotta mixture, but I figured while I was walking by this Italian sausage, I would just give it a little bit of a chop. This is supposed to be a quick version of a lasagna, basically. Or at least that's what I'm thinking it's supposed to be. We do need to make the ricotta mixture. Now, the recipe called for frozen ravioli, but I could not find a frozen ravioli I wanted to buy at my grocery store. So I just picked up some fresh ones, and in the notes it says you can substitute fresh raviolis. My favorite raviolis are the frozen spinach and cheese raviolis from Costco, but I did not have time to go to Costco today, so I bought these spinach and ricotta ones from the grocery store, so I hope these are kind of on the same level as the ones I like from Costco. For the cheese mixture, I added the ricotta. If you prefer cottage cheese, I feel like that would be a totally fine substitution. I prefer ricotta over cottage cheese, so that's what I am adding. And then we are gonna grate up a good amount of fresh Parmesan cheese in here. If you have pre-ground, use that instead. I don't have any right now, so I'm gonna take the time to grate this up. I also just added 1 egg. We should be able to get all these components together in the time it takes for our sausage to cook and our onions to cook here shortly. This would also make a really good make one now and make one for later as well. If you wanted to slowly stock your freezer with some meals, or if you needed to bring someone a meal, this would be a really good meal to bring to them. Because you could make easily one up for your family at the same time as you make one up for a gift if you needed to make a gift for someone. So I'm going to turn this down just a little bit so those onions can cook through nicely and get nice and soft. And the recipe calls for Italian seasoning, but I have basil here. So we're going to use basil instead. I actually need to go outside and probably plant this plant. We're gonna use a lot of basil because why not? This plant actually might not survive this, I don't know. I'll probably plant it in the garden and just see what happens. I like to leave my basil a little bit on the big side just because I love the flavor of that and I love biting into a basil leaf. I'm gonna season this with a little bit of salt, a good amount of black pepper, and we're gonna mix this together. And that is our ricotta cheese mixture. That was super easy. And I love to see all those big pieces of basil in there. That is not in the original recipe that I'm being inspired by, but I like to see that. We're gonna get these opened up. So this is looking pretty good right here. The onions could cook for a few minutes longer. That's perfect timing. Now I'm gonna add my garlic. By the time that thaws, this is some frozen garlic that I mince up myself and freeze. That's fresh. And by the time that's thawed and cooked up, these onions will be perfectly cooked. This smells incredible. I think this is perfectly cooked, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. This was pork that I got from a local farmer. And so the pork was very, very lean, so I did not drain this. If your pork is super greasy, go ahead and drain it if you prefer to do that. And then this recipe says to add spinach now. I think I'm gonna leave the spinach out because we have spinach in our raviolis. So this is just gonna be sausage, onions, and garlic. And now we can assemble our lasagna because we have all of our components. We are gonna layer this just like we would a normal lasagna, starting with a little bit of red sauce, if I can do that without making a total mess. I do wanna spread that out just a little bit. This will just help prevent our, I was gonna say noodles. I guess they technically, well, it's a pasta, so I wouldn't call it a noodle, I guess. Our ravioli from sticking to the bottom of our baking dish. I feel like it needs a little more. I may need to get another half pint out. This is just a quart of homemade sauce, but I may need more than that. We'll have to see when we get to that point. Now I'm gonna lay in my raviolis. I do have my oven preheated to 375 degrees. And this is 40 ounces of ravioli. I think I'm gonna do maybe like a third. We'll do 3 layers. And we're gonna sprinkle in some of our sausage mixture, about half of it. Gonna dollop some of our ricotta mixture. Spread it out just a little bit. It smells so good already. You want to make sure there's enough moisture in here to actually cook the ravioli. That smells so good. The amount of onions that are in there and garlic with the sausage. Yum. I think this is going to be really beautiful. Now the recipe I'm linking for you calls for 40 ounces of ravioli. I could only fit about 30 in this baking dish. If I used a rectangle baking dish, I may have been able to fit a few more, but this will be plenty for us. So I will just freeze the rest of those ravioli and we can use them another time. So I just topped with lots of mozzarella cheese that I grated earlier. Now this recipe says it needs to cook for an hour. That's using frozen ravioli. I obviously used fresh, so I'm thinking probably more like 45 minutes. It also says to cover for the first hour and then cook uncovered for the last 20 minutes. So we'll cover it and then we will take that off toward the end so it can get nice and bubbly and delicious. Because this is gonna take a good 45 minutes to cook and I have some time in the kitchen, I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit. And I'm gonna prep tomorrow night's dinner. I'm not actually going to cook it, but we're gonna prep it now. Might as well get two things done at once. Scratch that. I'm not gonna prep tonight's dinner. I think between what I've already prepped plus what I'm making today, we will have enough for tomorrow's dinner. So what I'm gonna do now is just sit down and relax. I am not going to prep any more food. I'm going to just enjoy the fact that dinner is in the oven and my house is quiet right now. So I'm gonna take advantage of that and actually sit and relax. I actually might read over my recipes one more time and I might plan out what I do tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm processing 100 ears of corn to put up for this winter, and I haven't fully decided all the things I want to do with the corn yet. So I will see you back when we take that lasagna foil off there or when I take the lasagna out of the oven. I think I'm gonna call it done. I put it on broil for the last just couple minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and get this turned off. And I'm gonna definitely need 2 hands to get this out of the oven. Look at that. I'm glad I didn't add any more sauce. I cannot wait to dig into this. Oh my goodness. So I had the whole time this was cooking to sit on my couch and relax, and basically I did nothing. I didn't plan anything. I just sat there and watched a YouTube video, maybe 2. And now I'm very excited to try this. Now my biggest thing is I'm just curious to see how well the pasta cooked up, because obviously we didn't boil the raviolis first. My dogs are asking to go potty. Let me let them out. It'll give time for this to cool a little bit. All right, they are outside. So the biggest thing is I'm just curious. First, I'm gonna taste the ravioli itself to see how it cooked up. Fully cooked, great texture. Okay, now I'm gonna do a bite with all the goodness, with some of the bubbly cheese, some ricotta, a piece of sausage. It's so hot. Kind of want like to build the perfect bite. Mmm. Delicious. I'm getting the basil. Adding that fresh basil was by far the right choice. I love the sweetness that fresh basil gives a dish like this. Oh my goodness, this is so comforting. That sausage that the local farmer or the butcher makes from the local farmer hog, so good. The crusty cheesy topping. This is just comfort in a bowl for sure. And of course, the homemade marinara sauce is so good. This I will absolutely make again. I wasn't so sure These raviolis are good. I don't think they're as good as the frozen ones I normally buy at Costco, but I mean, if I didn't know that they weren't the ones I prefer, I probably wouldn't have known because there's so many good flavors going on in here. This one is a winner. And if you wanted to add spinach to it, you could add spinach to it. I am probably gonna cook up some green beans to go along with tonight's dinner. I am just scarfing this down because I'm hungry. And we are gonna sit down and have a wonderful dinner. I will see you next time we are making a next time we are making a casserole dinner. We're getting ready to make our third casserole recipe, and I'm really excited about this one. And then the fourth recipe we're gonna be making, I'm switching it up a little bit. I had originally planned to do a beef pot pie, but I found another recipe when I was scrolling over the weekend on Instagram that I just really want to make. So I will link the pot pie recipe that I was going to make in case, because I said it earlier, you want to make it, but we're going to make a different one. But before we get going on our third recipe, I want to give you some of our thoughts on the ravioli lasagna. It was good, but I think it would have been better if I had waited to make it with the raviolis that I know we love from Costco. If I was to make it again, I probably would just make traditional lasagna. I like raviolis, but I do think I prefer them cooked on the stovetop. And I think I just prefer my raviolis and my lasagna separate. It was good, it was fun. I'm really glad I tried that recipe. But after we enjoyed it for like meal prep for lunches and stuff like that, Josh and I were talking about it, and that's kind of our thought. We would prefer our ravioli and our lasagna separate, but it was a fun recipe to try. But now, this next recipe we're gonna be trying is a chili cornbread casserole. I know I've had chili cornbread casserole because I remember my mom making this when we were growing up a few times, but I have never made it myself. So what we're gonna do is make a homemade chili, and then we're gonna make a homemade cornbread to go on the top. And we're gonna make basically a one and done dish that is gonna be, I think, delicious, because I really like all the flavors going into this. And this is one that I've been really looking forward to making. So I have 1 pound of lean ground beef cooking on the stove. While that's browning, we're gonna do the only veggie prep we have to do for this recipe, which is chop or dice 1 onion. This is a Walla Walla sweet onion from my garden, and I think this is gonna add incredibly delicious flavor to this recipe. While our ground beef is cooking, let's go ahead and make our homemade cornbread to go on the top of this. And this cornbread looks really good and really easy. If you don't wanna make your own cornbread and you wanna make this even easier, you could just make the chili portion of this recipe and use a box of your favorite cornbread mix and put it on top of this chili. But we're gonna go ahead and make our own because this recipe looks pretty easy to throw together. We're gonna start with 1 cup cornmeal, 1 cup all-purpose flour, baking soda, baking powder, salt, sugar. We like sweet cornbread around here. Now I know sweet versus savory cornbread is can be a very controversial topic. So you can omit the sugar, I'm sure, if you prefer a more savory cornbread. But this cornbread recipe only has 1 or 2 tablespoons of sugar in it versus the cornbread recipe I grew up with, the one that my mom makes and the one that I really like, has, I think, 2/3 cup of sugar in it. Now that's for a 9 by 13 pan of cornbread, but I think it's so delicious. So let me know, are you team sweet or not sweet cornbread? I know it's pretty regional whether you prefer a sweet or a more savory cornbread. This recipe does not call for any peppers, but when I make chili, I typically add peppers to my cornbread, and I harvested some peppers out of my garden yesterday, or actually I should say my son did. He picked all of them. So I think because we're gonna have time while these onions are sauteing, I'm gonna get some peppers chopped up because I think that'll add some good flavor. But I do wanna finish my cornbread to do that I'm gonna melt 6 tablespoons of butter. I'm for the most part following this recipe, except for the fact that I'm adding some of these really beautiful teeny tiny snack bell peppers, which I actually have washed already, and I put them in the fridge. So I'm just gonna get some of these chopped up. I don't think I'm gonna grow this variety of pepper next year because they're kind of tedious to cut around. This was a new variety I got. They're called a snacking pepper because they're so teeny tiny. They taste good, but we're not really, oh, my butter is ready. We're not really a snacky pepper family. I like mostly to use peppers cooked. So I have been just chopping these and sauteing them. And because these ones are a little bit on the tedious side, I don't think I'm gonna grow them again. But they've been fun. They were fun for my son to pick off the green stalk a couple days ago. I can smell that beef. Give it a little bit of a stir. This is pretty lean ground beef, so I'm not gonna have to drain it at all. I'm actually gonna turn this down now. And while I continue to chop up my peppers, I am gonna get my onions in there because that pan is telling me it's ready. There's still a little pink on some of those pieces, but that ground beef will finish cooking once or while the onions are cooking. I have not seasoned this ground beef at all yet, so let's get a little bit of salt on it. That'll help sweat the onions and it'll help deglaze the bottom of the pan. I just had a thought. Something the recipe does not call for that would be delicious in this. Before I mix this all the way up, I'm gonna grate some white, sharp cheddar cheese into that, and I think that will be delicious. If you're new to my kitchen, welcome. I use recipes generally as a guide. The recipe at the end says you can serve this with fresh jalapenos, cheese, and sour cream, green onions, and things like that. But I think it would be good to add some cheese right into the cornbread because I love a jalapeno cheddar cornbread. You could also probably add some jalapenos chopped right into that cornbread as well if you wanted to. But I know my family would prefer me not to add the jalapenos into the cornbread because they don't like spicy. But I will definitely be chopping up some fresh jalapenos to add on top of our chili cornbread casserole. Oh yeah, that is gonna be good. And you know what that's gonna do too? That's gonna add a beautiful brown color to our casserole. And this is a nice cornbread consistency. Cornbread you don't wanna overmix. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. I love cornbread. That smells so good. I haven't made cornbread, I don't think, since last fall or winter. Peppers and onions are looking nice and sauteed. So I'm gonna add some frozen garlic to this. That'll take just a minute to thaw and saute. And while that's thawing and sauteing, I'm gonna add my seasonings. I already salted it, so we're gonna add some black pepper, cumin, chili powder, and typically when I add fresh garlic and onions to something, I still will add some dried garlic powder. This is actually some roasted dried garlic powder, and I'm gonna add some freeze-dried onions because I like the flavor of both fresh and dried. Now the garlic that I put in there was frozen, but it was basically fresh garlic that I minced up and made into those little pucks that you saw and froze, because I love fresh garlic, but I don't like peeling and chopping fresh garlic every time I need it. So I have found that if I take some time, I either buy fresh garlic in a pack, you can get it in a 2-pound pack at either Sam's Club or Costco, wash it, blitz it up, you can freeze that fresh in little pucks, or you can take the time to peel garlic. When I pull garlic out of my garden, I take the time to peel it. When I'm out of the garlic from my garden, then I do buy that fresh garlic in the fresh section of my grocery store. A lot of flavor compounds in spices are fat soluble, so I like to toast them up in some oil in the pan. I did add the last 2 tablespoons of butter that we didn't use for the cornbread in here because this beef was so lean. I thought that it could do with a little bit of butter with the sauteing of the onions and peppers, and then now the spices. And now that's cooked for a little bit, we're gonna add our crushed tomatoes. I just added frozen corn. Now I'm gonna add 1 can of black beans. So this is kind of cool. These black beans are beans that I grew in my garden. The tomatoes I grew in my garden. And the onions and peppers I grew in my garden. So it's kind of fun. And here is our chili base. We're gonna mix this up. I'm gonna let this simmer for just a bit to kind of let all those flavors come together. Yes, I'm glad I added the peppers to this. I think we would have missed that if I had not added that. And I want to get this nice and hot. I did not drain the beans and I did not drain the corn. I think that moisture in there will add to kind of a nice saucy texture to our chili. While that's simmering away, I'm going to take a second to clean up. One thing to note, I am all out of plain crushed tomatoes that I put up from tomatoes I grew in my garden. So what I did, instead of buying crushed tomatoes, because I have tomatoes downstairs in my pantry, I took 2 jars of diced tomatoes. I drained them, they were pints, and then I blitzed them in the blender and I just put them in here. But the only pints or the only type of tomato products I have downstairs from tomatoes I put up from my garden from last year are diced tomatoes and marinara sauce. And I did not want to use marinara sauce in this, so I figured just crushing up my own diced tomatoes would be a good substitute. Last year I didn't put up any plain crushed tomatoes because I had some from the previous year. So this coming year, I have about probably 75 pounds of tomatoes on my dining room table, and I probably have about 150 pounds of tomatoes in my freezer that I grew in my garden, that when I go to process those with you all, I'm gonna process not just marinara sauce like I did last year, but I'm gonna go ahead and process some crushed tomatoes as well. I processed, I guess last year, marinara sauce and diced tomatoes, but this year I don't need to process any diced tomatoes because I have still plenty of those. I thought I would just show you the tomatoes on my table right now. That's some zucchini too that I need to process as well. If you're new and you are interested in knowing how to can your own tomato products, you do not have to be a gardener in order to do this. Before I had my own garden for about 4 years, I was buying tomatoes from a local farmer and processing them myself and canning them up. Now I have my own garden, so I use my own tomatoes. But if that's something you're interested in, consider subscribing, because in a couple weeks, we will be processing all those tomatoes plus the couple 100 pounds of tomatoes that are in my freezer. Now, one of the most important aspects of this is we're gonna taste it, because we can adjust the seasonings now, but it's gonna be hard to adjust the seasonings once we bake it. While I'm waiting for this to cool off, I was thinking, if you don't like black beans, but you like kidney beans, swap out kidney beans for black beans. If you don't like corn, go ahead and add 2 cans of beans and leave out the corn. If you don't like beans in your chili, add 2 pounds of ground beef and skip the beans. Wow. I don't think that needs any seasoning adjustments. Perfect on the salt, perfect on the spices. Nice and garlicky. I'm gonna go ahead and get this turned off. And this is a pretty thick batter. I was thinking I was gonna pour this on, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. So I'm just gonna take this small cookie scoop and scoop the cornbread batter on the top. By having the chili really hot on the bottom, that's gonna help make sure that the bottom of this cornbread gets cooked evenly with the top of the cornbread. If you were to prep the chili portion ahead of time, say you wanted to bake it when you got home from work, I would throw the chili portion in the oven. Make sure you get that chili portion super bubbly in the oven, and then top it with your cornbread. But this did not take very long to put together at all. I just know from making things like chicken pot pie with biscuits on the top, if the filling is cold and you put the biscuits on, the bottom of the biscuits won't get cooked by the time the top part of the biscuit is done. Okay, beautiful. I'm gonna kind of spread out this cornbread mixture just a little bit. And I purposely chose to make this chili in my baking pan. This is a brazier pan that I can go from the stove directly into the oven because this is saving me a dish. I probably should have opened the oven door before I brought this over here. And at this point, all we have to do is wait for that cornbread to bake, which the recipe says should take about 28 to 35 minutes, and you want it slightly golden brown. So I will set a timer and we will be eating dinner shortly. Definitely in that amount of time, I will be able to clean up my little bit of dishes that I haven't been able to clean up yet so far. I love this type of dinner. It may have created quite a few dishes. I may have been able to get away with a few less dishes, but I like a dinner like this that the veggie, the protein, and the starch are all built into one, because then I don't always feel the need to have a side. I mean, of course, you could definitely with this have a side salad or some fruit or something like that, but if you didn't feel the need to do that, I wouldn't always feel the need to do that. If I didn't have the energy, if I just kind of wanted to get dinner in the oven, get the kitchen cleaned up, and then call it done. The only other thing I'm gonna do to serve with that dinner is I am going to slice up some jalapeno and pull out some sour cream. And I will serve up some hot sauce for myself. One thing to note about this is it has bubbled over just a little bit. So if I was to make this again in this pan, I would put it on a baking sheet. It didn't boil over too bad, but it definitely, that's done. It definitely has a little bit on the bottom of my oven that I am going to get the pleasure of cleaning off. But this looks so good. I'm gonna let that cool for probably about 10-15 minutes or so before we dish it up and give it a taste test. I'm gonna have Josh come down and we're gonna give it a taste test together. I actually have a serrano pepper here, which will be delicious. And Josh is here, he's gonna do a taste test with us.
Hello.
You know what this is? Did I tell you what I was making?
No, but it kind of looks like the biscuit pot pie.
Chili cornbread.
Oh.
Okay, the cornbread is fully cooked. So we have a chili base, Josh, with a cheddar cornbread topping. And do you want some sour cream?
Sure.
Do you want serrano peppers?
Are they spicy?
Yeah.
Probably not.
There you go.
I do love the idea of having a homegrown serrano pepper, but I feel like the spiciness probably might ruin it for me.
Probably. Let me get you a spoon.
Okay.
I definitely want some sour cream on here. And I'm going to try it without the serrano pepper so I can get the full taste of it.
It smells really good.
Now, I have never made anything like this for Josh before. I mean, I've made chili and I've made cornbread. I've never made a chili cornbread bake.
Yeah, true.
And whenever I make chili, I do have to have cornbread with it because that's just my favorite combination. It's hot.
Very hot. It's really good though. You got a good amount of corn in the chili too, which is good.
And that's the corn we put up this year together.
That's really good.
You like it?
Yeah, great balance. The chili on its own is good.
Okay.
The cornbread's good on its own.
So you tried just the chili by itself and you tried just the cornbread by itself?
Yep.
Do you think you like this better than chili and cornbread?
I think so because it makes it not a soup.
Yeah.
I'm not really a soup guy.
Josh, yeah, is not a soup guy. If you've been here around here before, he's not a soup guy. He'll eat it the night of, but he doesn't enjoy having it for like lunches and things like that.
It's hard to get warm. I don't know. It splashes.
In the microwave?
Yeah.
This is really good.
It is really good.
I would definitely make this again.
Yeah, nice work.
Thanks. Now, in about 30 minutes, we're going to have another recipe to taste test.
Cool. Which one is this?
This is going to be the chicken broccoli Alfredo, deconstructed lasagna. That's what we're going to be making next.
That sounds good.
This is really good though.
All right, well, I'll take the snack upstairs.
Okay.
Perfect.
This next recipe is one that I saw and I had to make. We are going to be making a chicken and broccoli Alfredo deconstructed lasagna bake. Like I said earlier at the beginning, broccoli to me screams fall because we don't eat a lot of broccoli in the spring and summer because I don't grow broccoli. I've tried and it does terrible. So when I saw this recipe, I thought, we've got to try this. So I just put on the stovetop a big pot of water to boil because we need to boil our pasta noodles. Now while we're waiting for this, we can go ahead and get going on our sauce. So I'm gonna grab a pot that I can make the sauce in. I have my water on my burner that gets a lot hotter so that water comes up to a boil, and I'll make my sauce in this pan. Now this recipe calls for 6 tablespoons of butter for the sauce. I'm gonna use just a whole stick, which is 8 tablespoons, because I just don't feel like cutting this stick of butter up. So we're gonna go with this, and we're gonna let that melt. So I'm gonna cook that on high. While that's melting, I'm gonna grab out equal parts flour, and I'm gonna let this butter melt before we add our flour. Right before we got started with this recipe, I pulled off 2 chicken breasts from a rotisserie chicken and the meat from the chicken thighs and the drumsticks. So I'm gonna run my knife through this. This is gonna make this recipe go so much faster because we do not have to cook this chicken. We did ourselves a favor and let the store cook this chicken for us. And I don't know about you, but I love the smell of butter. This smells incredible already, and all we have is butter melting on the pot. Now I'm just adding my flour, and I'm adding equal parts flour to butter. So 8 tablespoons of butter I have in here to 8 tablespoons of flour, which is a half a cup. And this recipe is going to come together basically in the amount of time it takes for our pasta water to come up to temperature and boil. We'll be able to have this whole dish thrown together, which will be really nice. So in here, we are now going to slowly add our milk. And to To make this go even faster, we're using the rotisserie chicken and the broccoli portion of this recipe. I'm gonna be using a package of frozen pre-chopped broccoli because that will save us a step from having to wash the broccoli, chop up the broccoli, and blanch the broccoli. I might have to grab my whisk out. We'll just see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get my whisk out. I'm gonna turn the stove down just a little bit while we're working in this milk to this flour mixture. And that was 2 cups. We're gonna add a total of, oops, I'm trying to pour it out of the wrong end. 6 cups. And I'm using whole milk, but you could use whatever percentage of milk you have. It's 3, 4, 5, 6. At this point, all of the flour and milk are mixed together, so we're going to season up our sauce. That's black pepper, salt. The recipe does not call for garlic powder, but I'm going to add some garlic powder. And it does not call for onion powder either, but I'm going to add some of that as well, because why not? That's going to be delicious. It does call for cayenne pepper, so we're going to get a little bit of that in there. And nutmeg. If you've never added nutmeg to your white sauces, I highly recommend it because it adds a warmth that you just don't get without it. And I'm gonna grate up some fresh nutmeg. Oh shoot. I'm gonna have to wash that one off. Let me get a new one. You don't put a lot, just a little bit. That'll go really well, I think, with the broccoli and the cheese we're gonna add in just a minute. But I do wanna whisk that together. And then I'm gonna taste this just to make sure we have the right level of seasoning, because I can always add more salt and pepper right now. Because obviously I did not measure it, I just eyeballed it. But I'm gonna let this thicken up a little bit before I give it a taste test. Our water has come up to a boil, so I need to go ahead and season this with some salt. And then the recipe says you can add the noodles in whole and cut them up after. I just had to go run and grab my box of noodles. But I think it would be easier to just break them up now. Because again, this is a deconstructed lasagna. It's actually supposed to be a sheet pan lasagna, which are really delicious. I do have a really yummy recipe for a red sauce sheet pan lasagna. But we're gonna make it in a baking dish because I think that's just easier. So that was 1 pound of pasta, and we're supposed to cook this according to the directions, which this recipe or this box of lasagna noodles says. Get those in there. If I can find the directions on here. Have you ever made a recipe off the back of a box? I don't think I've ever made a recipe off the back of a box. This says Italian style meatless lasagna, which looks really, okay, right here. Boil for 4 minutes. That's not very long, but this is thickened up nicely. So let's give this a taste test. I like the consistency of that. I already grabbed a spoon out. I'm just grabbing my few other ingredients while I let this cool. Zero regrets adding garlic and onion powder to that. That is fantastic. So now I'm going to take my broccoli, and the recipe did call for 16 ounces of broccoli. This is a 12-ounce bag. I wasn't going to buy 2 bags just for those extra few ounces, so we're just going to go with one 12-ounce bag of broccoli. Our chicken, get this in here. And then we do have one more ingredient to really bring this completely over the top and make it a more traditional Alfredo. And that's Parmesan cheese. And I'm putting about a cup in there. The recipe called for a half a cup in the Alfredo sauce and 1 cup on top. And I'm adding 1 cup into it, and I'll probably add a half a cup on top. And I'm gonna let this hot sauce defrost the broccoli. And now I'm gonna give this a taste test again once that cheese melts, because that cheese is gonna add flavor. Oh my goodness, so good. It does not need any more salt. I'm so glad I added the onion and the garlic. No regrets there, but it does need quite a bit more black pepper. I love black pepper with an Alfredo sauce. The beautiful thing about cooking in your own kitchen is you can adapt recipes for your own preferences. Let's taste that again. Spot on. So good. I'm trying to make sure all the noodles have sauce on them and they're not stuck together. So that's just taking a second. Now this is going to be a saucy Alfredo. It's going to be incredible. This recipe also called for spinach, but I didn't really want to add spinach, so I left it out. But I think with the amount of sauce in here, you definitely could add maybe a cup more chicken, and definitely those few ounces of broccoli that I missed would be totally fine with the amount of sauce that's in here, because this is going to be saucy, which I am okay with. That's going to bake for probably 35 minutes or so. So basically, in less time than it took for the water to come up to a boil and cook those noodles, we were able to get the sauce completely done. I don't have that many dishes because I was also tidying up the dishes as I was making this. But while this is baking, I'm going to finish doing the dishes, and then Josh and I are going to do a taste test. While that was baking, I was able to get the kitchen completely reset. Dishwasher's going, stove is clean, counters are clean. Dishes are washed by hand. I love that. When I can get the kitchen cleaned up while my dinner is cooking away. So look at this. Oh my goodness, my friend. That looks incredible. So I'm gonna need 2 hands to take that out of the oven. Josh just got down here and he's ready to do a taste test.
Well, that looks creamy.
Yeah, it's gonna be super creamy and extremely hot. So I'm gonna dish it up, and we'll need to let this cool for a little bit before we take a bite.
I was gonna say on the last dish,
Yep.
I definitely noticed the cheddar
Oh,
in the biscuit once it cooled a little bit.
okay.
That's really tasty.
As you were walking away, I was going to ask, do you notice the cheese in the cornbread? So I'm glad I didn't ask, that you just kind of noticed it as you were eating it.
I think you had said it was a cheddar biscuit, but it didn't register in my brain. But then I definitely tasted it.
That's awesome.
This is going to be very hot.
Yeah, we're going to let this cool for quite a bit before we taste it. There's a nice cheese pull.
Nice.
We're trying to let it cool a little bit before we give it a...
Must be really moist in here because it's very steamy.
I was boiling stuff.
That would explain it.
So in this bite, I have noodles and broccoli.
I need to grab some broccoli.
I'm going to let it cool, though, a little bit before I taste it. Okay, cheers.
Cheers. Really good. Very tender.
The noodles.
Yeah. Good chew to it though.
I love
Very tasty.
the broccoli and cheese together. That is one of my favorite flavor combinations. Broccoli and cheese.
For sure.
And I don't know if I've ever talked to you, but broccoli to me feels like a fall vegetable because we don't eat a lot of broccoli throughout the spring and summer because I don't grow it. So we usually start eating broccoli again in the fall and winter. And so this feels really like cozy and comforting. It's very, very saucy.
Yeah. But not too saucy.
I think this would also be really good with rigatoni noodles because the sauce would make its way into the tube of the rigatoni. I think that would be a good substitution if you don't have lasagna noodles. I like this one.
It's really good.
I like this one a lot.
Especially I went with a floret
Oh
in
yeah.
that bite versus the stump.
Josh is not a huge fan of the stump part of broccoli. And so
Growing up, we got whatever the cheapest broccoli was, which was like you'd have like 2 florets and the rest of it would be stumps
in like the whole frozen
in like
bag.
the frozen bag.
So
So
when we were at the store this morning, he was hoping I would get the florets, but those sometimes are so big that I wanted the chopped ones. So
brings me back. It's good.
this is so good.
Nice work.
Now that we've tasted all 4 of these recipes, I'm going to repeat what they are in case you don't remember. Cheddar, rice, broccoli, and chicken casserole was the first one. And then we had the ravioli lasagna. What was the last one I just made? Oh yeah,
The chili.
the chili cornbread. And then the chicken broccoli Alfredo lasagna.
Okay.
Tell me your favorites, what you'd want me to make again, what you would be like a one and done. Did you like them all? What did you like about each one or didn't like?
I think I like them all pretty well. I think the cheesy broccoli was really good. I've been eating that
The rice?
for the full week. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the first dish. I don't know if that was the first one you actually made or
It was, yeah.
That one was really good. Great balance. I love rice. I love broccoli. I love chicken. I like cheese. So I should say I love cheese
We're a
It sounds like I
cheese-loving family
demoted
around
it.
here. Yeah.
by saying I like it. I also like the lasagna, the ravioli lasagna.
Okay.
It was good. A little bit harder to cut than just like normal lasagna,
Yeah.
but very good. Very, very good. And then obviously these 2 are good as well.
Do you have a favorite?
I think my favorite, ooh, that's tough.
They're all a little
Probably-
different, so it's kind of hard to compare them. I think.
It is. I think probably tied for first would be the chili cheddar biscuit.
Okay.
And the cheesy broccoli rice.
Okay.
And then tied for second would be this.
Oh, so both of them. So you've got a tie for number 1 and a tie for number 2?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
they're all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think for me, the tie would be the chicken Alfredo broccoli, the last one, the last 2, and the chili cornbread. Those are a tie because you can't, they're just so different. It's hard to compare. You've got beef and a chili red sauce type thing versus a white sauce type thing. But I do love the combination of broccoli, chicken, white sauce, and noodles. That's delicious. And then for me, it would be the chicken rice broccoli bake. I love that. Josh and I both really are rice fans. Probably one of our favorite like starches. And then my least favorite probably was the ravioli. Not because it wasn't good. I just think for me, I prefer lasagna and or ravioli kind of separated. So thanks for doing the taste test.
Yeah, thanks for making it.
You're welcome. Now, obviously, I just cooked 2 casseroles today. So this will be meal prep for us and we'll be able to enjoy on this for the next foreseeable future. But it was so fun making new recipes. I love making new recipes because you just never know when you're going to find your next favorite. Sometimes they're winners, sometimes they're kind of like a one and done, like, oh, that was fun to try, but I don't need to try that again. And if you need some more dinner inspiration, let me pop some videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Maybe let me put a slow cooker dinner inspiration up here. We'll put a sheet pan dinner inspiration here, and we will put a stovetop one pot wonder dinner inspiration there for you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. These recipes will be linked down below, and I did not make the beef pot pie. So if you want that recipe, you and I will make it at some point in the future, but if that sounded good to you when we first started, I'll link that one down in the description box as well. Bye, friends.